Hello everyone, my name is James and I want to bring you a video. It's requested by a lot of my clients. I work with medical cannabis patients, prospective medical cannabis patients especially, and a lot of times they're Catholic because I went to the seminary. A lot of people I know are Catholic. My prospective patients are older and they have questions, and when they try to research for themselves using the media that they have, they often end up on these sorts of articles. I'm looking at an article from the National Catholic Register today. It's called To Puff or Not to Puff. It's back from 2013. It's 3 years old because it's still up and people still read it. So I feel like I'm obligated to talk about it. So I just want to go through the article. I'm not going to talk about all of it because there's too much there, but it's very repetitive as far as the problems with it. In one of the first sections of the article is titled Observing the Law. And it says, even when laws are in conflict, Catholics are morally obligated to observe them. St. Thomas Aquinas said being a good citizen means recognizing the government's authority and following just laws. And that's true, but it's misapplied here because the whole point of this debate is whether or not these laws are just. And in the Catechism, it says that you're not obligated to follow an unjust law. A law that is immoral, you're not obligated to follow as Catholics. When people say there's no substance to this law, it's immoral, it's unjust, we should overturn it, disobeying it isn't considered a bad thing. Now, there can be argument about whether or not this is a just law or not, but that's the point. Right now, the issue is this a just law or is this an unjust law? Many people, especially younger people, will say, no, it's unjust. This is not the government's role to regulate plants. So keep that in mind. This is a little bit off base to be invoking this, because you're not supposed to take everything the government says at face value. You are supposed to question things that aren't morally sound. And people would argue that restricting cannabis sale, research, development, and distribution is unethical. So, that aside, let's see what the Catechism says, because they quote it in the article. The Catechism of the Catholic Church states, "The use of drugs inflicts a very grave damage on health and life. Their use, except on strictly therapeutic grounds, is a grave offense." I would ask what the definition of drugs is in this sense. Because there is no therapeutic value in alcohol. The risks of alcohol greatly outweigh any health benefit, especially when comparing it with cannabis. So if you're going to allow alcohol consumption in moderation, then there's no argument against cannabis because it poses fewer health risks. If you're going to define cannabis as a drug, you have to state clearly why you're not defining alcohol as a drug, because they both alter your mind and your perception of reality. So that's important. In 2001, the Pontifical Council for Health Pastoral Care reported in its handbook, Church, Drugs, and Drug Addiction, that consumption of various forms of the cannabis plant cause euphoria, confusion, desire to laugh, and drowsiness. Strong doses cause lethargy and upset in the perception of time, visual precision, and loss of short-term memory. With high and repeated use, pot can cause palpitation, swelling of blood vessels, bronchial illnesses, and psychic dependency. There are a few problems with this. First of all, that consumption of various forms of the cannabis plant cause euphoria. I don't know what the problem with euphoria is. A lot of things cause euphoria, none quite as well as cannabis. The desire to laugh and drowsiness, well, for a lot of people that's helpful. Some people can't sleep very well. They might not be able to get insomnia pills, or they don't want the medications because they are addictive and they are dependent forming. Whereas cannabis you can use when you want it. You don't have to use it all the time. It's not addictive. So let's see. Strong doses cause lethargy and upset the perception of time. visual precision. I'm not sure about visual precision. I've never felt like I lost my visual precision. And loss of short-term memory, yeah, okay, but it's like it's short-term, and you get it back, and the only thing you lose is like you'll misplace your phone. It'll be in your pocket, but you'll say, "Where's my phone? Oh shoot, I lost my phone," and you'll start looking for it, and then you finally end up putting your hand in your pocket, and you're like, "Oh, it's right there." Okay. With high and repeated use, pot can cause palpitation, swelling of blood vessels, bronchial illnesses, and psychic dependency. I don't know where they're getting this information from because I have not read those reports. It might be a side effect of smoking, and if that's the case, then we're not talking about the same thing because we're not arguing that everyone should be able to smoke cannabis. We're saying that everyone should be able to choose how they consume cannabis, and you have to be able to offer different selections. And when you legalize it, you offer the different selections. There are plenty of ways to consume cannabis without smoking it. So, for example, bronchial illnesses, that's only if you smoke it. So, if you're not smoking it, you're not going to get bronchial illnesses. It's not the cannabis, it's the smoking. So, separate the two because we're not talking about the same thing here. Psychic dependency, it can cause psychic dependency if you're someone who can get dependent on anything. If you can become psychiatrically, is that the right word? If you can mentally become dependent on cannabis, you could also become mentally and physically addicted to anything else, to alcohol, any other drug, painkillers. OxyContin is pretty bad. And those all cause real physical dependency. Psychic dependency is not really a thing. That's a problem with the person, not with the plant. And you're not going to solve that problem by keeping it illegal. So if it is a problem, and I've read numbers that say like maybe 1 in 10 people can become psychic, can have that kind of mental dependency on it. But those are people who will become mentally dependent on anything. And you should know yourself. If you know that you're going to take it too far, then don't do it. It's the same thing with alcohol. It's the same thing. If you know that you're going to have a problem controlling yourself, then don't do it. I mean, that's something that people should be able to self-police. It's not something that you can solve by saying, no, it's illegal for everyone. So, I mean, this is a Vatican Council kind of group. It was led by a Monsignor who I don't know if they had any experts on their panel, but they clearly didn't take advice from them because this isn't very convincing, especially for people who have ever used cannabis. They know that this is not the case, mostly, and the things that are the case aren't usually a problem. I kind of use cannabis for the euphoria and the desire to laugh. It's nice to be able to laugh. Studies rejecting, this is outside of this is the article itself. Studies rejecting the myth of benign marijuana abound. The National Institute of Drug Abuse found smokers who heavily abused pot in their teens through adulthood showed a significant drop in IQ level by 8 points from average intelligence to the lowest third of the intelligence range. See, here's the problem with that. If you're going to say that there is the studies proving that marijuana isn't good for you, if those studies abound, that means that there are a lot of them. You can't use a study that doesn't really prove your point. Because if you, at first you'd say, oh, marijuana use makes your IQ level drop. No, it doesn't. Marijuana use in children and teenagers with developing brains can, in some cases, cause the brains to not develop fully. It can cause developmental damage. But the problem here is that no one is arguing for recreational use for children. We're trying to take it away from children, and the way you do that is by legalizing it and regulating it. When you do those things, guess what? Now there are no more drug dealers in your area because there's no profit in selling cannabis when you can just go down to the store and get safe cannabis that is lab tested, certified. There's no pesticides in it. You know that it's pure product. You know that it's clean. You know the name of the plant. You know the effects that it has, and you can have someone walk through and choose the best strain for you or you can, they have different edibles there, different dosage levels. Maybe you're someone who has a low tolerance for it. You want something light. The bud tender can help you. They can say, oh, here, try this candy. Try one of these little Swedish fish. They'll help you. It's light. It's good for you. It'll take about 30 minutes to an hour or two to kick in. So if you don't feel it right away, don't worry. So, when you have someone who can explain it to you instead of a dealer who's just trying to make a quick buck, who will sell it to children, then you get rid of this problem. I mean, it won't go away completely. It never will. But prohibiting it won't help at all. It makes it worse. Anyway. So they go on, and eventually there's a section that says health and vulnerability concerns. And they have someone else talking here that they haven't had interviewed throughout this whole article so far. And she seems like the most knowledgeable person and the most unbiased person in this whole discussion. Not just because she agrees partially with me, or I agree with her partially. It's because she's trying to say that she has her opinions and she's against using it for herself, but she's not against it for other people. She shouldn't, and she's saying you shouldn't try to restrict something because you're against it. You can be against it, it's fine. You don't have to use marijuana. No one's saying you should use marijuana if you don't want to. And here's the thing. So her name is Professor Hillhaker of Loyola University, Chicago. She's a Christian ethicist. And what she says is, if I don't want my kids to become drug dealers, then I have good intuition that I don't want anybody to become a drug dealer. In context, that means that if she doesn't want something for herself or her kids, she doesn't want other people to do it too because she thinks it's bad for them too. However, an ethical assessment requires one to transcend intuition, and the respect for the freedom of others becomes a consideration. That's her sentiment here. She wants her intuition to, she's putting it on pause. She's saying, I understand my intuition. This is my intuition, but I shouldn't enforce it on other people. I should take a step back and look and weigh everything equally. And then she says that also a person's decision to smoke pot may be implicated morally if there is not a set of regulations that would control the distribution and contents of the drug. Buying pot on the streets, a potentially dangerous activity that supports illegal drug dealing, may not be an ethical decision for a pot smoker if there is an option to buy it in a controlled and regulated setting like a state-approved pot shop. That's what I was saying before, and that's what I agree with. There's less of a risk buying from a state-regulated cannabis dispensary than there is from buying from someone who doesn't have a license to sell, who might not have a good product, who might have a dangerous product for you. They can cut stuff in there that makes it addictive. So that's something to realize too. But I get this question a lot. People ask, is it moral or not for Catholics to use cannabis? And the answer is in moderation. This is going to be a non-issue in a while. So that's important to remember. And I don't think I have anything else to say. I'm just trying to figure out how to close off this video. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like it and subscribe. If you want to see more of these, just let me know. Give me a thumbs up. Ooh, give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment. If you have any questions, if you disagree with me on anything, just leave a comment. I would like to hear your feedback on these things.